And welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Bums podcast. It's your host, Rob, aka B-Ball Archives. And once again, I got the bums in the house. AJ, James, thank you for joining me this morning. We usually start off with some Spurs topics, but there was such a big trade that happened last night that we have to address that first and foremost. Luka Doncic is now a Laker. I never thought those words would come out of my mouth. Luka Doncic is a Laker. He's been traded for Anthony Davis. Obviously, other players are involved, but those are the two main pieces. Guys, how are we feeling about this? Pure insanity.
I honestly can't even find the right words to describe it. It's the most shocking transaction I can ever remember in any sport ever.
It's the most backstabby trade of all time. I mean, there are reports that the Mavs had no conversations with Luka, and Luka's like, "Oh, I got traded." Then you have on the other side, like, did LeBron James pull some strings to get Anthony Davis out of there to get a superstar? I mean, there's just like so many question marks, and then shout out to the Jazz for making it all work. So I think they're the unsung hero in this whole thing.
Leave it to Danny Ainge to somehow get his name into this trade.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I think that the Jazz low-key won this trade because they didn't completely uproot what their entire team is working towards. Like, I think that obviously the Lakers, what they're trying to do is say, fuck winning now. We're looking for the future. Obviously, LeBron's not going to be here. We can't rely on AD's availability. And we want to know who we're building around. And they are obviously saying Luka is that guy, and the Mavs are saying Luka is not that guy. They would rather pay Anthony Davis the 3 years on his contract rather than the 5 years that Luka Doncic was owed, which to me is absolutely bonkers. You had a 25-year-old, 5-time first All-NBA guy. What are we talking about here? Those are the kind of guys that you wait to build your team around. You can't wait to get those guys on your roster.
It's just confounding all around because, like you said, Luka's 25, Anthony Davis is 31, and we all know the injury concerns around Anthony Davis and his injury history. It goes totally against the notion of LeBron having any control of this organization because, like you said, this is not a win-now move from the Lakers. This is, we found our future guy at the cost of our present. And for the Mavericks, I mean, Nico Harrison, the GM of the Mavericks, it's just like, what in blazes are you doing? Especially with Gafford,
the balls that he had.
With Gafford, Washington, and the other name escaping me, already still there. Like, they can't be done, right?
I mean, I think that if you're looking at the Mavericks, like you are such an, like, you're in win now mode, but you're also going to have to get this team to gel. And to me, it just doesn't make full sense because if you are in win now mode, you would get the most you possibly could for Luka. And if I'm looking at a Mikal Bridges trade where you're getting 5 first rounders for him, you're getting 5 for Rudy Gobert, like, what are we talking about here? We're in an NBA where guys like Luka should be getting 5, 6, 7 first rounders for him, not injury prone rim protectors, even though Anthony Davis is an all NBA level guy. But you're going to be lucky if he plays 55 games a year for you.
I don't want any Spurs fan, at least for the short term, criticizing Brian Wright after he gets 3 first-round picks for DeJounte Murray, and we see Luka go for 1, and we don't even know what that first-round pick is going to be worth. Also, the Spurs are kind of a low-key winner in this because they have that 2030 unprotected pick swap from Dallas, and I mean, I think Jerry Jones's vision of all in bled over into the Mavericks because it's just like, when you say you're going all in, what do you mean by that? Because this would have been an awesome team in 2016. Like, awesome. But in 2025?
It's just so crazy that it happened, and I mean, we're on the side of the Spurs where everything's a rumor until it happens. And then all of a sudden you just get a notification on your phone after watching the Royal Rumble. So I'm pissed off already. Jey Uso shouldn't have won that. That's going to be a dunk later. Anyway, so just you're sitting there and I'm watching Severance and all of a sudden like the phone goes off and you're going, no. And then you see Shams reported it and you're going, oh man. And you start to think about it and you start to dissect it and you're going, wait, what the hell is going on? And then you see reports that the Mavs weren't happy with Luka's conditioning. He probably has an attitude. I wonder if the Mavs know something that no one else knows about his calf. Because if he has these issues and they're trading away him for I wouldn't say scraps, but not what he's worth. I wonder if they know something we don't know.
Right. But like, I mean, if that is your chief concern and that's your main concern and you bring in a guy like Anthony Davis, all you're doing is shifting the concern in a different way. You're saying Nico Harrison was saying, I'm making this move because of defense. Defense wins championships. That's why I'm making this move. That's a fucking direct quote from him.
Yeah.
And what I'm looking at is like, okay, well, if he's there 70 games, sure, that's a realistic play, but he's played over 70 games once in the last 8 years. Anthony Davis is not a guy that is going to be able to exist on your team long enough in that 3-year window that you realistically have to get back to the Western Conference Finals. I don't see this team gelling quick enough before all of their key pieces get too old.
No, and it's, Anthony Davis is now the young guy on that big three, the hypothetical big three. He's 32 years old, or about to be. I think his birthday's in a couple of days. I know he's about my age, so it defies logic. And also, you got to think that this is going to light a fire under Luka. Like, to have this happen to him, to have a franchise literally just quit on him so abruptly, it also kind of adds a whole new context to that GIF we saw last year from the Western Conference Finals where Michael Finley just kind of swipes the beer out of Luka's hand. Like, it makes you wonder about some of the conversations that were happening backstage. You see him do that. You see the look on Luka's face. You're just like, hindsight being 2020, I wonder.
Right.
I thought Luka would eventually be on a different team, like in free agency in his later part of his career.
Not like this.
Not like this. And then, now if you're the Lakers, like, what are you doing too? Like, you're kind of a dumpster fire, You're just like, it's LeBron James, Luka, and Rui.
No bigs
for the future.
Like,
literally, not a single big on that roster. No one in that front court.
Sorry, they got Maxi Kleber. Like, oh my bad. Sorry, they got Maxi.
But all that being true, if you're grading Rob Pelinka on this trade, you have to give him a high grade because he got Luka Doncic for a first-round pick.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, I mean, it's hard to sit here and bash the Lakers, even though on paper they took a step back this season. They got a 25-year-old, should be motivated, all-world player in his prime. I mean, talk about the rich getting richer.
Right.
Just from a history perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like now the most historic franchise in NBA history has their 10-year building block to just build off of, and it makes sense, and it's a really, really great piece. Like, arguably, outside of Wembanyama, maybe the most ideal building block to build a 10-year franchise around. So to me, the Mavericks trading away Luka Doncic for what I would consider peanuts is head scratching, like to say it lightly.
It makes both teams worse in the immediate, but from the Lakers' perspective, I can at least understand what they're doing and why they did it. From the Mavericks' perspective, I almost feel bad for Mavs fans. Like, almost. I don't, but like, organizationally, I just don't understand it.
No, dude, are we going to see beach bod Luka here in the next like few months? Is Luka going to start surfing in LA and all of a sudden just trim up to like a lean 220 and all of a sudden like Luka looks like Giannis? Like, I mean, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but like there's more vegan restaurants in LA.
Honestly, I was kind of thinking the exact opposite. He's going to a state with legal weed. He's gonna be hookah Doncic. He's gonna be smoking it up. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But at the same time, yeah, like I think that we're about to see the Luka Doncic revenge arc. I think that he's about to get the fire in his eyes, and he's gonna say, you know what, you didn't believe in me. I'm going to see you in the playoffs sooner rather than later, and it's going to be on site. And so I think when you light a fire under a guy that already has a chip on his shoulder, he already has 30, 10, and 10 capabilities. Holy
70-point games.
Yeah, holy shit. He may just surprise everyone.
Like, can you envision Mark Cuban making this trade?
No.
He's gone 1 year. He's gone 1 year, and this happens.
Especially to a team in the Western Conference, right? Like, it just.
And the reports are the Mavs went to the Lakers saying, "Hey, do you want Luka?" And they're like, "What?" Like,
yeah. Like, set aside your anger, your distrust in Luka. You know, you're ready to pull that plug. So be that. But you absolutely fail your job duties in not opening that bidding up.
Oh my
according
God.
According to the reporting, like AJ said, they just called the Lakers out of the blue, and
I would have given away Castle, Vassell, Johnson, 4 first-round picks if we would have get Luka. That would have been.
It's a fireable offense, basically, is what I'm trying to say. To conduct business that way, like as the general manager of a team, you were in the finals last year. It just defies logic in every way. It's
right.
I'm out of words.
Right. I mean, it just seems like in a league where you're able to really, really maximize your assets from a draft pick perspective, it's just like the Mavs just didn't seem to care to do that. And it, like, just the way they were talking about Anthony Davis just made me feel like, have we been watching the same player? Yes, he statistically dominates, but if you're relying on him to be your main offensive threat while being your team's best rim protector, that house of cards falls sooner rather than later because he just can't stand up to that task physically. He just falls apart. And you know, it's not a shout on him, but he plays 55, 60 games at most.
I feel like Robin Williams in Jumanji. I like, what year is it in terms of the Mavs valuation of their team at large, not just Anthony Davis? Because I mean, going out prioritizing Klay Thompson in the offseason, it's just they're playing fantasy basketball in 2018.
Yeah. Imagine. Oh, I like, just like you, James. I kind of feel sorry for Mavs fans, but like, dude, Christmas was like a month ago. So how many kids got Luka Doncic jerseys and they're like, "Oh my God, I got Doncic!" And like their family is like, "Yay!" And now they're like, "Wait, we don't have a Luka anymore." Like, dude, I'd pissed off if I was a kid.
Rob, AJ, you know what I'm about to, or you know what I mean when I say what I'm about to say. That Luka Lakers jersey is going to go hard at summer parties or at spring parties around college campuses this spring.
Yes.
You're going to see so many Luka Lakers jerseys. Oh.
Yeah, a bunch of white frat kids are going to be rocking that jersey real quickly. Yes. But at the end of the day, the fact that they traded Luka without telling him, and then he's not going to be able to get the Supermax in LA. So basically disrespecting him and then fucking with his money. Like, how does he not just aim for the head after this?
Yeah, that I think they play on the 25th of this month. That has to be appointment television. Like, I'm telling you, I may very well be in the hospital and I will be watching that game somehow or another.
Oh yeah, I mean
So
priorities,
push.
right? Yeah,
Push the
like-
ball. Push the ball.
Like context and all, of course,
Right.
the right time and the right place. But if I can,
right. You'll be saying push the tempo. Yes. But yes, yeah, but dude, honestly, the craziest update any of us have ever received late night, and definitely the biggest trade any of us have ever seen. Obviously, two All NBA players getting swapped midseason, it's never happened before. So seeing something like this is literally unprecedented. So it's just kind of cool to be able to just talk about it and just see kind of where trades are going and how GMs are kind of getting reckless and treating this free agency like it's the wild, wild west, or trading the pre-trade deadline.
Did y'all see KD's reaction whenever he found out?
Yeah.
yeah, no, they were passing the phone around the bench. It was funny if you just type in live reaction on a search in Twitter. It's funny to just see the various podcasts and people reacting to it in real time. It's
And then Anthony Davis too. Like the
fitting.
reporter indirectly told him he got traded, and he was like, "Wait, what do you mean my tenure here?" And ha 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 ha.
Okay, so do y'all really think that LeBron had nothing to do with it, and that he was just at dinner and found out and was like, all right, I guess we got Luka now.
Call me naive, but I kind of do, because the whole steez of LeBron the past 5 to 10 years is, how can I win now? How can I maximize my opportunities to win right now? And this flies totally in the face of that. So I know we have our preconceived notions of le GM, but I can't square these two events.
I don't know,
Right.
man. It's hard for me to believe that the Lakers organization does anything without LeBron's approval first. And it could have been just like, hey, heads up, we have a deal on the table. We're gonna get Luka, but we have to get rid of AD. How do you feel about that? And he was like, do what you need to do. Like, it could have been like that, but I do think,
Yeah,
I do think that he had some kind of final say on this. But I don't know how JJ Redick's gonna make up this offense. It's gonna be, they have to be shooting over 40% every game. I mean, it's gonna be tough if they can't grab rebounds.
Oh, it's going to be an absolute dumpster fire. They have no front court presence whatsoever, and I don't know how they're going to be able to defend anybody above 6'10". I literally don't. And so there's going to be a huge problem, but and that's why I kind of am agreeing with James, because I don't think if LeBron had full say that he would just be willing to punt this hard at the end of his career. It just really feels like this is a complete give up. Like, he's just saying, all right, go ahead and bring in a guy that you're going to build the future around, a guy that is just as ball dominant, if not more ball dominant than I am, a guy that obviously our playing styles are going to clash, and he's probably going to have a higher usage than me. And so there's definitely, several signs to be like, all right, maybe LeBron didn't know about this, but if, that, then it would be just completely disrespectful all the way around.
Yeah, and then if LeBron doesn't know about this, is he going to be a Laker come summertime? I mean, just it's if all these curveballs are being thrown the entire time, does LeBron take a step back and go, you know what? I don't want to finish my career here anymore. I'm going to go to San Antonio, which would be pretty cool for me. I'm just saying.
Well, AJ, you bring up an interesting point. They might have told LeBron, they might have said, like, hey, we have this on the table, but I don't think they really, sought his input one way or another is, hey, this is really going to sway our decision-making on this. And if you're the Lakers, you shouldn't, because this is your future. This is beyond LeBron. We have LeBron for another year or two in this league. This is setting yourself up for 10 years to be what you expect to be as the Lakers, as that brand, what your fans expect you to be, where your fans expect you to be. This does that beyond LeBron. So I think you might be right. They might have just run it by him, but beyond that, this whole thing all the way around just encapsulates where the power actually lies. When we talk about player empowerment, it only goes but so far.
Right. Well, and it's like, where is your leverage? Like can you leverage that with potential future play? And LeBron, you can't guarantee he's even going to be there in 3 years. So
No.
yeah, I mean,
I wouldn't bet on that.
And the Mavs and Lakers may not be done. Now that I'm thinking about it, I know that Jimmy Butler was on the Mavs radar, and one way to get Jimmy Butler is to trade away a piece that you don't really want to keep very long in AD. I mean, he only has a few days to do it, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see AD dealt to like Miami in like a 4-team trade and we get De'Aaron Fox or something like that. I don't know. I'm just spitballing out here, just thinking about ideas, just something to kind of consider.
I wouldn't think. I think in general, both teams might still be active. I don't know if they'll move Jimmy for a piece they just got. Actually, I don't know if they can. Per league rules, I don't know.
Well, Anthony Davis waived his trade something where he gets a bonus whenever he gets traded. But he waived that with the Mavs, so it's a little floaty idea.
Either way, I think you're right. It would make sense for both of these teams to pursue new pieces, especially the Lakers when you talk about their front court, Rob.
yeah, I mean, I don't think either team could potentially be done, but I think given the how that deal went down, the structure of it, it seems like both teams are very, very confident that they got their guy that they want to have for that at least the next few years. So I mean, I think that's just gonna be it. It was just a crazy fucking trade, and we'll see how it shakes out.
Any trade that follows that up has big shoes to fill over the next few days. Like, I mean, any Shams notification, even us as Spurs fans, it's gonna feel a little light.
Man, I thought we were closed the other day. I thought, like, when Don Harris was tweeting stuff and people were like, hey, well, there's a deal in place, and then we haven't heard anything in 2 days. So that deal might be done or still being worked out, or maybe we're just trying to get through the weekend. But, man, Keldon Johnson on, was it Friday?
Yeah.
In his post game, he looked like he got traded.
Yeah, that was definitely notable, the way he sat at the podium and just,
He's also been super aggressive these past 2 games. Sorry, low transition. Here we go. Yeah. But he's been super aggressive these past 2 games. Watching him play, he looks like he's playing for his job. It literally looks like he's out there playing for a purpose, and he's not just out there like kind of going through the motions. And if we can get that kind of Keldon Johnson productivity night in and night out with that kind of attitude, I would love to keep him. But we don't see that very often.
No, but I mean, to your point, we've seen him the last 3 games. He's had amazing first halves, back-to-back games. I think he's had 17 points in the first half. He's been attacking the basket, like you were saying, very, very well, been very aggressive. And yeah, I think he hears the rumors. He hears that we're potentially bringing in a guy like De'Aaron Fox. And if the money has to work and if the money has to line up, he's one of those guys. He's one of the guys that we're paying $17 million a year. So he could be one of those pieces. And he also realizes that going to the basket, attacking the rim is something that we don't have in abundance. We don't have a bunch of guys that are really just trying to put their face at the rim and really just try to, draw a foul and try to get their bigs in foul trouble. So I think he's realizing, hey, if I'm going to stand out on this team and make myself a real asset, then I need to do the things that not a lot of other people are doing, and that's attacking the rim. So I think, yeah, if we get this kind of Keldon more often than not, maybe we should keep him. I don't know.
I mean, Rob, quite frankly, you in that explanation just underlined why the Spurs are looking at a guy like De'Aaron Fox. Because of his ability to attack the rim, put the defense in compromising positions, and collapse around him when you have a guy, an alien like Victor Wembanyama around. Like, we hear all the talk about Stephon Castle, and I like Stephon Castle in the future, but he is not what De'Aaron Fox is. And so that's why you have this interest. That's why the fit works. And I saw Sam Vecini. I don't know who he works for, but I like his content. Had an interesting post, a little bit of a rant on why Fox and Wemby work so well together for that reason, because De'Aaron Fox is able to collapse a defense. He's such an efficient driver.
And he's clutch.
Yeah,
and
he's the clutch player of the year.
Right, and he scores when it matters the most in late fourth quarter situations. So not only is he doing those things that you just highlighted, but he's doing them in really, really pivotal moments in the game.
It just can't be said enough, I don't think, that he averages 25 a game. Like the Spurs,
All NBA player.
Yeah. If you're the Spurs, you don't want to get 6 or 7 years down the road. I'm not saying Wemby's going to leave before then, because realistically, the way the NBA is structured, it's very rare for something like that to happen. But you don't want to get 6 or 7 years down the road into Wemby's career and have him be in like shoes of a Jokic, where he's never had an all-star teammate. Now, Jokic is so great, they still broke through and won a title anyways, and I think Wemby is that kind of guy down the road. But you want to do right by your superstar, and that's the whole mindset you have to have when you go into a trade like this, because quite honestly, it's going to hurt. The way the Spurs operate, the way the fan base operates, the way we get attached to these players,
Always does.
it's going to hurt. No, whether it happens in before the deadline or in the off season, there's a Band-Aid that's going to have to be ripped off there. Whether it's Steph Castle, Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sohan, whoever it is.
I mean, I'm still upset about we didn't re-sign Steven Jackson, so there's that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was talking to a really good content creator, Possible Chairs. Shout out to Possible Chairs. He's a big Kings fan. And he was saying that, hey, what's a realistic trade, between the two of us? If we were to give y'all De'Aaron Fox, what would you reasonably give us in return? And I was like, well, you know what? We don't really want to give up Castle. I think we want to prefer to keep Castle. But I think if we're being realistic, it would be something like maybe Keldon and Sohan or something, and then another player like Trey Jones to address their lack of point guard situation, and then picks. And then he was like, well, I don't necessarily know if I'd want that. And then he was like, okay, well, what about something like Vassell and then Sohan and then picks? And then that seemed to be a more lucrative deal for them. So is that kind of a deal that you would want to see us do for De'Aaron Fox?
See, I might be in the minority or on the unpopular side of the Spurs community, but the way I would look at it is, obviously you have Wemby on a pedestal, but the asset that I would like to give up least next to Wemby is Jeremy Sohan. Like, he would be my most untouchable other piece. Steph Castle versus Devin Vassell is an interesting dynamic, because it's how do you want to build your team? But hypothetically, correct me if I'm wrong, the more teams you get involved, the less you have to give up. So it would behoove
Ideally.
the Spurs to try to get this to a situation where you have a 3 or 4 team deal, I think, rather than just dealing directly with the Kings.
I agree. I think the more teams you bring in, obviously, the more variables and the harder it is to actually make that deal work. But at the same time, I agree. I think that would minimize our risk a lot. We would be able to find maybe another team that would be wanting our picks even more than Sacramento would. But at the same time, I don't disagree with your Spurs hierarchy when you say that it's Wemby, Sohan, and then Castle, Vassell. But I also think that I may in my head flip Castle and Sohan. I think that Castle, from a long-term perspective, is going to be more valuable than Sohan. I think his skill set will end up being more unique in the long run.
There's a lot of interesting, I think, ways to look at it if you get into if you get really into the weeds of it. And it really comes down to what you think Stephon Castle is going to be long term, because we all have high opinions of him, but it's how exactly is he going to realize the high potential that we see in him? Is that shot going to develop? Is the offense going to develop? Because quite frankly, right now he is a negative offensive player. Despite what you might see in the numbers, he's taking too many shots. His shot selection is bad, and he's not a good finisher for a guard. And those are three things that are a bit concerning for me when you talk about making this guy a building block of your future. I know he's young, but still, as a guard, those are three things that I would like to say those are check boxes coming into the league.
True. I'm never gonna fault a 19-year-old for efficiency. Especially from beyond the arc and in mid range. I do agree finishing around the rim should be a higher percentage. I do think that is alarming, but he's shooting about similar to what he did at UConn last year, if not a little better. So I think that the progression is there. So it's not incredibly alarming, but at the same time, I agree. I think that he has enough things that he hasn't checked off to where there's question marks.
Shot's not broken either, so
Yeah,
that is hopeful.
I would feel better about it if we still had Chip England. I would feel much better about it if we still had him as our shooting coach, because I've noticed that we've dipped a little bit since we lost him, and by a little bit I mean quite a bit. And I look at guys like Devin Vassell, who right now really needs one. I mean, he went 1 for 10 on threes last night, and he was taking some really tough shots. So guys like him, guys like Castle, who have like just a really good shooting coach, could kind of get them out of those slumps. And Devin Vassell has not played well in a long time. He's had spurts here and there. He had 20 points games, but he's also going 8 for 25. So,
and that's why it presents an interesting dynamic when you talk about potential trades going forward, especially if you're bringing in a guy like De'Aaron Fox. Do you think that Stephon Castle, no matter what we think of his ceiling, is a complementary fit next to De'Aaron Fox? Because in my mind, I have a hard time seeing Steph Castle as the point guard of the future. I think he's a piece of the future, but not the point guard of the future. And so it comes down to, like, Devin Vassell, Stephon Castle, who's a better fit? If you really want De'Aaron Fox, who's a better fit next to him and Wemby? And I think if we're honestly judging at this point, projecting out, I think that's Devin Vassell.
I think if we're going off of skill set and just saying, hey, who can play better off ball without the ball and just, catch and shoot, obviously it's Devin Vassell. But I'm viewing it more as looking at the defensive side, and I'm also envisioning Castle by the time he's 22, 23 years old, even maybe 3-4 years in the league, I'm viewing him as a guy that will have most of those efficiency issues worked out, or at least be trajecting in the right direction.
I think there's a lot of moving parts to this, and for that reason, I'm almost starting to doubt that this gets done by the deadline. I think this has a high possibility of getting done in the offseason, but I think if you're the Spurs, you're almost incentivized to wait and see how the draft lottery shakes out.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, if you're the Kings, because if you look at the standings right now, the Bulls are 9th, the Spurs are 10th, or the Hawks are 10th, and the Spurs are 11th. So the Spurs get the Bulls pick if it falls outside the top 10, get the Hawks pick no matter what, and they have their own pick. So you're looking at potentially 3 of the top 11 or 12 picks there if the dice fall in your favor. And I think that becomes a lot more appealing come June than it does in February when you're just saying what if.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. If we end up getting the long end of the stick and we really, really do end up with 3 of those picks in the top 12, then we're going to have assets that we could throw around a little bit, and we're going to be Mr. Moneybags at that point. So I don't disagree with that one bit. Our leveraging point could be much, much better in the summer.
Yeah.
we'll see. It's all exciting stuff. I want to see the Spurs win just a few more games. I want them to get back to 500 if possible. I don't know what happened to Wemby last night. It said an illness, so I don't know if
He's
he got
sick like half the city is. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly.
I don't know if he got
Right.
he got ate some bad food and had the squirts, but just I really hope that just this team just kind of turns a corner because it's been really tough to watch. Like it was fun to watch us beat the Bucks. That was awesome, but then turn around the next night and just kind of lay an egg with the Heat. I mean, yeah, it was a last second shot, but it was just it feels like I said like I said we've been saying all season. It's like we're running in mud, and we just can't get a lot of momentum.
Yeah, I think that's a good analogy. I'm going to be 100% honest. I did not watch a second of the game last night. I was watching the Royal Rumble instead.
I get it.
But I did watch some highlights and look at the box score. So if I'm box score watching, forgive me. But one thing that's frustrating that we've touched on in past weeks is that in a situation like this, no one took the bull by the horns. This was a game that they could have won even without Wemby. And Devin Vassell didn't shoot well. Steph Castle didn't shoot well. Jeremy Sohan was absent offensively. You scored 4 points in the last 5-15, and they were all by your 39-year-old point guard.
Yeah, and to your point, AJ, when you're talking about those long slumps, and you're bringing and James, when you're bringing up CP3, yeah, that's all that was happening late game. There was a 4-minute chunk where it was Devin Vassell taking 3 after 3, missing, taking contested jump shots, missing. We were not going to what got us back into the game in the first place. It was a lot of strong takes to the basket, and so much of what made our offense click in the first half was Keldon. And we were talking about it earlier. And when we're talking about guys that need to be walking into that door when it's wide open, when Wemby's not playing, the door's open for somebody to step up and have a really, really big game. I thought it was going to be him. I thought it was going to be Vassell. He ended up going 8 for 22 and kind of shit in the bed. And it's like, guys, we really need somebody to show us who they really are, especially when Wemby's not playing and he's suffering from I don't want to play back-to-back-itis.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I get it. My wife had COVID. Half my family's been sick this week, so like it's nasty down here in San Antonio. And I saw someone on Twitter not even speculate. It was a French reporter who said the seasonal allergies had been getting to Victor the past couple of days. So I think
that makes sense.
He's he's got what the rest of us have. Luckily, I haven't caught it. Knock on wood, but
Steeder fever.
It's tough days in San Antonio for the allergy sufferers like Victor, apparently.
Yeah.
But it's frustrating because the defense was there. The defense played well enough. And I'm looking at the box score, which, again, criticize me if you must, but no one scored 20 points last night if you're the Spurs. Not even 20. And so, like, the defense is there. You played well enough to hypothetically win that game if someone steps up.
Yep.
Yeah, and there was bright moments because at the end of the day we lost by a last second shot, and it was good defense on Bam. We had a hand in his face. He just got up a good shot and hit that shot. He's a really good player and he made a really good play. But there was also really good moments, I think. Charles Bassey put up a career high in rebounds. I thought he was really, really active. And he was having to do a lot more than we really, really needed him to do because Zach Collins just fucking sucks.
Yeah,
like I don't want Zach Collins on our fucking team anymore. There was one moment where he was playing transition defense. It was the single piece of worse transition defense I have ever fucking seen before. Like, okay, literally what I was taught. When you're playing transition defense, there's the hierarchy. You guard the basket, and then you guard the ball, you guard the man. And that is the order. And he literally left the guy dribbling the ball at the basket to go guard his man. And I'm like, you prioritize 3 over 1 and 2. What the fuck are we doing, Zach Collins?
He went to Gonzaga. You should know this.
I hear Coach Alamio's voice in my head, like sometimes saying random basketballisms, and one of them is stop the ball. And I'm a big proponent in like therapy and mental health, and I think Zach Collins might need to see like a sports therapist, because I know there is at least a passable player there. I don't know if it's injuries, I don't know if it's mental, but something is broken. And my wife will tell you, I've been saying it for over a year now. Zach Collins is a terrorist. I want him off my team. It's just painful to watch.
Yeah. And earlier, like when I was talking about us, talking trades with Kings fans, he dude was like, "Hey, you'll take, if you take our Kevin Herter contract, we'll take your Zach Collins contract." I was like, "Fucking deal." I was like, "Fucking deal, bro. You don't know what you're getting involved in. This is a grenade right here. It's gonna blow up right in your face."
I think about how much easier it would be to move that contract this time next year when he's like an $18 million expiring contract coming off of somebody's books, and then someone would be like, "Okay, give me that contract," and then they'll just stash him on the bench until the end of the season, like kind of where he belongs at the moment. But Rob, you mentioned a good point about the defense on that shot by Bam. It was great defense, but it was also being played by Keldon Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, numbers are numbers, height is height. Bam's just going to rise up and shoot over Keldon every day of the week, no matter how good the defense is. And so it's the lack of depth in the front court coming up and showing its face again.
It's frustrating. It's frustrating to lose to a Heat team that's going through so much turmoil, like outside of the court, and it's in Twitter, it's in the papers, it's all over the internet, and like everyone knows that like they're having a lot of locker room issues, and we still can't get wins over that team. And so that's two times we lost to the Heat when they were going through their whole Jimmy Butler fiasco.
I feel like, yeah.
And I'm like, we don't have that. So how come we can't be galvanized and like push through? That's just my take on it. It's frustrating whenever you see that and you're like, I know that we're better than this team. We just didn't play well again.
Especially coming off of the emotional high of Friday night.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that 26-point win against the Bucks was amazing. That was some of the best basketball we've played all season. We only had 6 turnovers all game. Wemby had an amazing game, 30 points, 14 rebounds, 6 blocks on 45, 100 splits. And that's the kind of shit we need from him. If he's not putting up big games offensively and putting up those 4, 5, 6 block games to deter people from wanting to enter the lane, then we're really putting ourselves at a huge disadvantage. Like, we just absolutely need that.
Yeah. And you expect, this team has taken steps. We've seen them earlier this season actually win a couple of games without Wemby. And we saw they played well enough without Wemby to win that game. And so it's just doubly frustrating that you can't have some of those role players who stepped up the night before
back to back at home.
Feed off of that momentum, especially because, good point, AJ, it's the last home game for a month.
Right. We're not going to be back home until March 2nd.
Technically they
we're
have
we're
2 home games. So I mean, Rob, it's your chance to show out.
Let's go. I'm gonna make it.
Rob's gonna be at the game just passing out baseline bump podcast stickers like, listen to my pod. Hey.
Bro, I'm gonna make it moody. Dude, honestly, I might do like a live recording, something, ask people questions outside of the Moody Center thing. I think that'd be kind of cool.
Are you gonna bless the mood?
You know what?
Come on, everybody, sing with me. Bless the mood.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man, that's funny.
But yeah, that's a very good point. We're not going to be back in San Antonio until March, so I mean, our stamina might be really, really low towards the end of February. So I'm
All-Star break.
Yeah, I'm kind of seeing how we're going to respond to that.
But at the same, so now that we're in 2025, we've been doing the rodeo road trip for what, 20 plus years now or so. At this point, I think it's silly that we do it. I think it's silly that we spend an entire month on the road and then we come back and we go to Austin. Why can't we just go to Austin during February whenever the UT's not playing their games and just play one quick game in there and call it a day? We don't have to be on the road the entire time, or shit, play in the Alamo Dome, or go play in Paris. Like, this rodeo road trip thing is just getting old, and I don't see the point of it if we were able to play in other arenas.
I'm rooting on Project Marvel for that reason. Get the Spurs downtown. I don't understand. I mean, I know logistics are tough because they play in a shitty spot of town, but why can't they just put the rodeo at the Freeman and let the Spurs play next door? Like, you can stagger it. I feel like someone could come up with a schedule where you can make that work. I know the rodeo is a big deal in town, but the Freeman seats 10,000 people. That's.
I think they use both arenas, James, whenever they're doing it.
Oh, do that?
Pretty sure they do.
Right, and they share that parking situation too. So that parking would be an absolute fucking nightmare going in and out of there if you were utilizing both spaces at the same time. That would be wild.
Yeah, but if you're in San Antonio, that's why you hope for a downtown arena sooner rather than later, so you can maybe, to your point, AJ, get rid of this rodeo road trip because it does feel a bit outdated. It is always the longest road trip in the league, and it feels, especially when you have a young team like this struggling to gel, it feels like a big disadvantage.
Oh,
right.
My biggest thing is we start doing playoff pushes, and we're having to spend a month and a half on the road. Now, granted, it's in Austin, but it's still on the road technically. So that's my big thing is just if we start to get into that playoff push and we're having to play these games outside of San Antonio, that's when it's going to really start to bother me.
Well, and especially look at who you're playing in Austin. You're playing Phoenix, who's desperate and playing for their lives, and you're playing a resurgent Detroit team. Like,
yeah, those are not easy games.
And so it's like, man, I know they're home games, but this is tough.
Yeah, I mean, at least the Spurs guys are gonna, get to eat some tacos and stuff like that. But at the same time, they're not going to be able to go home technically. So I'm looking at it through that lens. And yeah, the rodeo road trip was cool whenever it was, Tim, Tony, Manu, and we had a group of seasoned veterans, and it was like, you know what, this it kind of feels like, hey, let's see how many games we can win on the rodeo road trip.
Come together and all that.
Right.
Stuff.
Oh, yeah. It was like a fun obstacle that we could overcome because we knew we were going to win 70% of our games on the road trip. But at the same time, that's not the case anymore. Now it's like needless stress on our young team. And it's like, nah, if we really want to put ourselves in a position to be successful later on, we need to do something to change that fucking schedule.
Yeah, you had a bunch of grizzled veterans who wanted to not go home.
Right.
and now you got a bunch of kids who need to spend a night in their bed every now and then.
Right.
Listen, I'm a sleeper. I get it.
Yeah. All these Gen Z players, man.
Did you guys hear what Tony Parker said the other day? When he spoke to the young Spurs squad and the difference between Tony's time and their time. He was very honest. He was very French about it, if you will. He said they just did back-to-back 60-loss seasons. My worst season was 48 wins, and half of my career I went to the conference finals and made the playoffs every year. So I was telling that the young guys and I was putting I was telling that the young guys and I was putting that in perspective, how long and how good and for how long, and that's the high standard we have with the Spurs organization. So.
I was afraid
when you say it like that, you're like, oh shit, like Tony didn't lose.
I was afraid that you were going to make him sound like the Undertaker talking about how like back in his day people were doing hard drugs and now they're playing video games. But no, it's a good point. It's a good point, and we as fans, I mean, I'm 32 years old. This is the longest Spurs championship drought of my lifetime.
Yep.
I don't.
We're fortunate that that's the case, to be brutally honest, because there's entire fan bases that go their whole lives without championships, and then, maybe, just maybe, when they're, grandparents way down the line, they see a championship and they can actually celebrate it. So the
Look at
fact that,
Cleveland.
yeah, look at Cleveland. Or better yet, don't. But at the same time,
What's so great about Cleveland? You think Cleveland's cool?
but at the same time, yeah, it's a situation where, like, I think it feels so low right now because of how high we were. We need to just sit there and say it was nice being at the mountaintop for as long as we were, and just pissing down on everyone else, because that's essentially what we did for 2 decades.
We're on the climb back up. It's just, like you said, for 2 decades, when you're used to that kind of winning, your perspectives get skewed a little bit, and you see it. You see it on Spurs Twitter. It's just like, man, we really had to figure out how to lose. Just as a fan base, we really had to figure that out.
It's so frustrating because, like, you see flashes. Like, every 5 games or so, we just see, like, oh my God, like, we're right there, and then just like shit bed, and you're like, oh. And then once again, like, oh, look, Wemby had another 8 blocks. Oh yeah, he didn't go to the free throw line the next game. Like, so we'll get there. It's just, we just got to continue to push forward, and maybe make a splash or two. But at this point, I'm just happy to be a Spurs fan, not a Mavs fan.
Well, and it just underscores how lucky they were to get Tim Duncan, a player like that, into just a ready-made situation, right?
Maturity and age. They're coming out at 18, 19 years old, and Timmy was a grizzled vet at 22. So,
yep, we will forever be fortunate. But guys, are we feeling dunky? Are we feeling like yamming?
It's early.
James, who are you going to dunk on?
Oh, God. I don't feel like I could match last week. Honestly, it's been a pretty tame week. Do y'all want me to go first?
He's like, Krispy Kreme. Let me go.
All the possible dessert sponsors out that window.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, I'll go first, I guess. I will dunk this week on homeowners associations. I feel like I don't even need to really say that much more. But we got a certified letter yesterday on a Saturday. Someone made someone else on a Saturday come to my house, make me sign something to give me an envelope. When I open it, it says, I need to cut my grass. You guys in your snippy messages can go fuck yourselves, quite honestly. Like, I pay my dues. Whether that's on time or not is not the point. I pay my dues. I don't need your snippiness. All right. I know other neighborhoods. Like, I know my in-laws and my brother. Their neighborhoods give them food trucks every week. We don't get shit. We get a snow cone truck like once a quarter.
You guys get a truck?
Yeah, and it's like, what am I paying you guys so much money for? And why am I getting all these notes? Remove this dead bush. It's not dead. Cut your yard. Why? No one else is cutting theirs. Why are they all getting letters? It's just, I feel like everybody hates homeowners associations for their own reasons. I just happened to get that letter yesterday that made it come to the forefront. So homeowners associations, you're getting dunked on today.
Yeah, I mean, basically modern day Nazis, right?
And also, stop messing up my Facebook feed with useless notifications about your meetings that nobody goes to.
Oh my God. You've been yammed on, HOA.
Suck it, HOA. Rob, we got.
I think I'm gonna have to do a film related dunk. I'm gonna be dunking on safety meetings, because so whenever there's like a stunt that we're doing in a movie, we have a safety meeting at the top of the day so we can talk about that stunt. And we did it perfectly on a short film recently where a guy fell out of a window. We talked about the stunt. Everyone was comfortable about what was happening. We're all on the same page. And this was a tiny little short film, but I've worked on $500,000, $2 million, $10 million films where we shit the bed on this every fucking time, and then all of a sudden on the schedule it says something really dangerous is about to happen. Like this is a really, really like almost sketchy situation that we're like looking at, and then it's like, oh, we haven't had a meeting about it. We don't know what's going on, and I'm basically asked like, hey, point the camera at this guy that's about to like he's on fire and he's jumping out of a window, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what? Wait, we need to have a meeting about this so we can understand the logistics. And it seems like people fucking forget this. So if you're watching this and you have a film production, have a fucking safety meeting if you're doing something dangerous. It's just common fucking sense. Jesus Christ. Yeah. You would think, but like it requires like a separate meeting like that, and it's where you're talking about the details and everything very specifically. And so it's, I don't know. They're like I've seen that glossed over way too many times. So fucking have the damn meeting.
It's like, hey, what are you gonna do? It's like, oh, we're gonna light them on fire and see what happens.
It reminds me of the beginning of the year in every science class that we had in grade school, where it's just like lab safety. This is how you don't light yourself on fire or create mustard gas. It's like the basics, but it's not the basics to everybody apparently.
Right. You need to say that shit. Yep.
So safety meetings are necessary, and stunt coordinators that proceed without.
Right. Yeah. You end up getting shot by Alec Baldwin. Just saying.
That's a good point.
I bet there was no safety meeting on that set.
No, they were handing the props to like people that weren't in the stunt department. They hired non-union weapons masters, so it's like, like I see the dominoes falling and all that. So maybe they didn't even have proper meetings. Who knows? But I'm speculating. AJ, who you dunking on?
Well,
I have a feeling where I know where this is going.
Well, I have a few dunks, but I'm gonna limit to one. And because I traveled back to the States yesterday, traveling has been my biggest pet peeve as of late. And it's not necessarily like the traveling part. It's just the people, the absolute obliviousness of people. Like if you're walking in a corridor and you stop in the middle and you're like, hey man, I'm walking behind you. I'm going to run your ass over. Like what are you doing? And then on top of that, the people who are not only oblivious, but also take more than 30 seconds to get off the plane. You get up, grab your bag, and you go. Like, that's all you have to do. You don't have to sit there and like, oh, what do I do? And then also, F the guy behind me who's trying to get off the plane. I'm like, dude, we're all sitting here together. It's not like you can jump ahead of us. And also, last one, travel-wise, I'm going to murder somebody if you open a smelly piece of food next to me when I'm trying to sleep. And I despise jelly beans and black licorice. I despise them. And the person next to me opens up what I find absolutely dreadful, and I can smell your nasty ass like black licorice, and I can smell your salami down the row. You're opening up an orange. Like, what are you doing? Like, we're in a tube in the air, and you're like, get fucked.
All right, honestly, you heard it here, everyone. Eat tuna around AJ on a flight.
Honestly, I expected that to have a more Samoan tint to it on that.
Yeah, well, also, I'm going to dunk on the Royal Rumble for having Jey Uso win that thing. Like, I don't know where they're going with it. I don't know what they're booking, but I don't agree with it. So,
Rob, I know you're not a big wrestling guy. The easiest equivalent I can find to this is Andre Iguodala winning the Finals MVP in 2015.
Oh man,
nailed it!
Like that. Like that's what happened, basically.
Okay, so the wrong thing happened.
So yeah, except Andre Iguodala winning the MVP was a spur of the moment thing. This was actually planned.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Rob, we can't wait to have you on our first wrestling podcast.
Right. I will sit there. I'll be silent, Rob.
We're just gonna get you a soundboard that says yes and no, or I agree with James, I agree with AJ.
No, he can be like Poppy in highly questionable. Just be like, oh, see, I'm very intrigued.
Oh no.
Guys, that's been a good episode. We talked about the Luka trade that absolutely blew all of our minds. We talked about the recent Spurs play and the potential De'Aaron Fox deal, and we had some good dunks. So I think all in all, it's been a pretty good episode. So, guys, I think we should end this episode the same way we do all of them. Oh, wait, hold on a second. Before I do that, I forgot to thank people for watching. I forgot to thank people for listening. If you're still with us right now, we appreciate you for being here. We appreciate you for sharing and liking and subscribing and leaving all of your wonderful comments. Follow the Baseline Bums if you aren't, and if you are, we absolutely love you. The podcast would not be the same without you. But like I was saying, we're going to end the episode like we do all episodes. Okay,
one more
James,
plug.
you got
one more
something.
plug. Follow the Baseline Bums podcast on Twitter now at Baseline Bums Pod.
Yeah.
Yes, there we go. We got James. We got James on the Twitter.
We need more followers. We have 5. We've got,
We're trying to make it to 10, guys.
By the way, shout out to Jeff Garcia from Spurs Zone at Kins 5, our first verified follower.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
On our way.
Let's
start a rumor. Sources say.
I love it. We're popping on all social media. So yeah, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Apple Podcasts, where the hell ever you listen to shit, we are there. So we appreciate you. And guys, that's nice. I think we should give it a real nice go. A Spurs. A go.